Well, hello, and welcome back to On the Shelf, where I explore the glories of my physical media collection. This being the holidays, I'm going to be talking about the greatest Christmas movie of all time.
It's not a Christmas movie.
Yes, it is. John McTiernan said so. The greatest Christmas movie of all time, Die Hard, and its patron saint, Alan Rickman. Glory be to the Rickman and all his works. Well, unless you've been living under a Dwayne Johnson all your life, you know all about Die Hard. It's one of the most beloved action films of all time. The plot is almost a meme at this point. New York cop John McClane goes to California to see his estranged wife. An office tower gets taken over by terrorists, and John's gotta sneak around the building to pop them off before they complete their dastardly plans. It's been copied so many times it's practically its own subgenre. But the original has never been equaled, not even by its own sequels. And that's because when Die Hard came out, there really wasn't anything like it. Action movies in the 80s were mostly steroid-laden affairs, where a nigh-invincible muscle man bazookas hundreds of guys to death and barely gets a scratch. But Die Hard went in another direction. Less brawn, more brains, including the casting. Bruce Willis may be synonymous with action now, but at the time, he was mostly known as schlubby private eye David Addison on the comedy series Moonlighting. Not exactly the guy you'd hire to take on a gaggle of machine gun-toting terrorists in a major motion picture, right? But the entire film was populated with such casting choices. McClane's hard-as-nails ex-wife was played by soap opera and comedy star Bonnie Bedelia. The sadistically violent Carl was Bolshoi ballet-trained pretty boy Alexander Goodenough, who had only ever played fey cuckolds in other films. About the only expected castings were Reginald VelJohnson as a cop, because obviously, James Shigeta as the charmingly stoic Takagi, and Paul Gleason of Breakfast Club fame as Dwayne T. You Just Got Butt Screwed on National TV Robinson. But the most important casting choice was Alan Rickman as the debonair Hans Gruber. The key word for hiring the actors was cheap. They wanted the best actors for the least money, which takes us right back to Alan Rickman. You see, Hans Gruber is arguably the best part of Die Hard, and everything you love about Hans Gruber is down to Alan Rickman. The suave manners, the cold precision, the charm, the clothes, the intelligence and wit, how he plays off McClane, Takagi, Holly, and even his own men. Those were choices made by Rickman, fought for by Rickman, and nearly got him fired. When this Shakespearean stage actor came to Die Hard casting calls, it seemed like a no-brainer. You can get all the hard-working acting chops, and you can pay him pennies because nobody's ever heard of him. Unfortunately, Rickman came from a more collaborative stage environment and had some suggestions. The original script had Gruber wearing tactical gear and strutting around like a thug like every other brain-dead action flick heavy in the 80s. Rickman suggested that Gruber should be cultured and suave, a thinker, not a thug. After all, he's the brains of the operation. Why have him running around with machine guns when he's got all these guys to do his bidding, right? Well, the producers patiently listened to his suggestions and promptly threatened to fire him and screamed him out of the office. According to Rickman himself, their exact words were, "Get the hell out of here, you'll wear what you're told." But Rickman stood his ground. In spite of warnings from his agent that he was tanking his Hollywood career before it even began, Rickman didn't care. The craft, the art of acting was more important, and miraculously his boldness paid off. When he came in Monday morning, there was a new script with a tailored suit and a Cartier watch awaiting the glorious villain we all know and love. There are varying accounts as to why they eventually changed the character, but it was definitely the right decision. Rickman himself said that the reason Die Hard resonates with audiences is because it was delivered with wit and charm, and in my opinion, most of that wit and charm was Rickman's own. It cannot be overstated how this single choice in actor and character saved this film and caused a massive shift in American action flicks. The message was clear: invincible mega men are out, the underdog is in. Honest Trailers even did a whole video where they talked about how Speed, Under Siege, and Air Force One were just Die Hard on a bus, a boat, and a plane. Audiences always respond well to sharp writing and relatable characters. It was true then, and it's true now. I mean, come on. Anytime you hear someone complaining about Ray being overpowered or bad writing or digital Gumby people backflipping through green screen backdrops and how frustrated and bored they're getting, just think about this. The reason all those complaints keep coming up is because we don't have characters we can connect with or writing that makes us believe in them as relatable human beings. For goodness sakes, even the Die Hard franchise forgot this lesson, amping up the crazy until McClane was throwing cars at helicopters and averting nuclear war. I recently had the opportunity to see the original Die Hard on the big screen for the first time in my life. I was amazed how much it changed my experience. I've seen this movie like 100 times. I own 2 copies of it on VHS and DVD, and a ton of behind-the-scenes extras, and I thought I had memorized every freaking frame, but the way it jumped off the silver screen when delivered 20 feet high really helped me appreciate what a phenomenon this thing is. There's nothing else like it. I mean, sure, others may copy the formula, including Die Hard 2 and 3, but you'll never really recapture lightning in a bottle. There's a magic here that transcends generations. You could plop any jaded Gen Z dude bro into a theater seat, and even he'd give a chuckle when he hears yippee-ki-yay, and he'll tense up when Gruber takes that final plunge. That's how good this movie is. And the writing? Stellar. I've long complained about how modern movies don't understand setup and payoff. The Chekhov's gun, if you will. But between screenwriters Stewart and D'Souza and John McTiernan's directing, you never realize until the movie's over how well the setup is paid off. It's astounding how much is packed into just 2 hours. Fist with your toes leads to McClane being shoeless, which leads to a dozen other points in the film. Holly's watch from her boss taking the place of her wedding ring, symbolizing her break from John and her attachment to her independence, only to have that watch nearly kill her later on, and John saving her. Cokehead Ellis is literally shot in the head while drinking a Coke, which I have to imagine was a wink at the audience. Powell's backstory, Argyle in the basement. For goodness sakes, even when the music choices are building over time, building from simplified hums to full-on triumphant crescendo, so that throughout the movie you can see how even the soundtrack was setting us up for big payoffs later. I could do a whole video on the innumerable setup and payoffs and how well-crafted this script is, but I'd be straining the 3-hour mark, so I'll just go over what I think is a very important touchstone of the film. Director John McTiernan said when he got the film, he had one specific scene in mind. When McClane gets off the plane and the limo driver says, "It's my first time driving a limo," he specifically wanted McClane to say, "That's all right, it's my first time riding in one." That's it. That, in the first 3 minutes of the movie, lets you know all you need to know about John McClane. He's an everyman. He's unused to the finer things in life, and he's more comfortable with other ordinary folks than the high-class echelons his wife frequents. And when he reaches Holly's office party, he's intimidated by the opulence, but forces himself to be offended by it because he's intimidated by his wife doing so well and that she might not need him anymore. That upsets him because he feels inadequate, and he translates that insecurity into anger and makes a mess of his reunion with Holly, which is paid off later in the film and is represented by his confession to Powell, a man he feels he can say things to he'd never openly say to his own wife, and is also represented by the breaking of Holly's watch as John saves her. When the watch breaks, the barriers are broken. He's proved his worth. He's earned the woman he loves. The gold is gone. The hero remains. It's just awesome. But back to the point that started this nonsense. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? See what I did there? Set up, payoff? Never mind. Well, for some this is a Christmas movie, and for others it isn't. Bruce Willis and the director even battle on this part. I asked my wife, who is entirely wrong, why she thinks Home Alone is a Christmas movie and Die Hard is not. And she had no reasonable rebuttal. Home Alone is just Die Hard for kids. Come on, that's the plot. So why is Home Alone or It's a Wonderful Life considered Christmas classics and Die Hard is not? I would argue that Die Hard has more Christmas in it than It's a Wonderful Life. It also has, well, okay, so never mind on that part, but I'd also argue that most of the movies you think are Christmas movies aren't nearly as Christmassy as Die Hard is. And if you refuse to accept that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, it can double as a New Year's Eve movie. If you start Die Hard at precisely 9:58 and 13 seconds p.m., Gruber will fall at the stroke of midnight. I'll take that over New Year's Rockin' Eve with Sir Ryan Seacrest any day. But whether you think it's a Die Hard Christmas movie or not, you can't deny that it's one of the greatest action movies of all time, and it deserves a place of honor in any physical media collection. The DVD I have is part of the 20th Century Fox 5-star collection box set of the original 3 films. The only good ones, if you ask me. It's got anamorphic widescreen with THX picture and sound and a bunch of extras, including director and special effects supervisor commentaries, extended scenes, gag reels, a copy of the script, trailers, some kind of weird interactive movie editing game, and something of an oddity that doesn't exist anymore. A DVD-ROM PC disc that takes you to an interactive menu with internet links and video game demos. But just be warned, you have to have Windows 95 or higher to run it, so you better update your software. This is so weird. This was really a thing. It reminds me of those crappy video games you used to get in cereal boxes in the 90s. I don't know, it's so strange to me. You can pick up copies of this movie just about anywhere, of course, and the set I have is all over eBay. It's definitely worth a look for the extras and the odd time capsule that is the mid-90s PC stuff. But what are your thoughts on Die Hard and the whole franchise, really? What's your favorite? Which one do you hate? Is it a Christmas movie, or are you horribly wrong? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more reviews like this, like, subscribe, and until next time, happy viewing! Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a review.